operating officer for the Great Parks of Hamilton County. And he's going to lead off. So let's get on with how we need to pass these levies.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation. Bill, thank you. Thanks for reaching out. As Bill said, my name's Brett. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Great Parks. And before we get into business, I just learned we have a little bit of time. I wanted to tell you a quick story. I had the good fortune to grow up next to a creek, and I explored that creek almost every day. I spent my free time flipping rocks and exploring, and every day was a new discovery. And my mom used to lament that I always had squishy tennis shoes. And it's why protecting the environment is really part of my ethos today. And it's really more than just child development. I realized that as I got older, time in nature is really critical for me personally, for my well-being. And it's really what keeps me resilient. And I'm not alone. I know many of you have similar stories, and the way you connect might be different than the way I do, but they all occur in very much often in public places and public parks. And parks are critical for people, both young and old, to have experiences, and it goes to cohesiveness of a community. And it's really how we build memories and how we cement our bond to our hometown here. So that's my story. That's how I'm connected. And I just wanted you to know that I'll tell you a few things about issue 34. It is a renewal levy, and it won't increase your taxes, but it will continue to fund operation and enhancement of your park's natural spaces, trails, buildings, programs, and other assets. Did you know that we log more than 7 million visits in Great Parks annually? And believe it or not, that's more than Kings Island. A lot of people ask, like, how do you compare? And that's always a benchmark I like to throw out is Kings Island we do log more visits. Also, we maintain 18,000 acres of green space, 84 miles of trails in our 22 parks and preserves. A couple of things by the numbers here. We did an updated study through the UC Center for Economic Studies that cites that for each dollar of tax funding that goes to Great Parks, $3.15 of economic activity is generated in the county's economy. So spending by out-of-county visitors also brings in $47 million in new money into the Hamilton counties and the city of Cincinnati's economy. So I always like to, it's always good to share who's endorsed an initiative like this, because I think it helps folks triangulate where we share values and how we overlap. A couple of endorsements that I will share are AFL-CIO Labor Council Charter Committee, Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, Cincinnati Association. Thank you, Alice. Green Umbrella, Hamilton County Democratic Party, Human Services Chamber, Ohio Environmental Council, and Tri-State Trails are just a few that have endorsed. So the numbers work out, but that's not the whole story. And I think what is more difficult to quantify is the park's impact to the communities and the storylines like mine and maybe to yours. These impacts are really priceless, and it's really important we preserve the opportunity for future generations to experience clean and safe parks. And as I wind up today, I just wanted to end on a couple of notes. Whenever I speak to a group about how the parks are doing and how we're relevant in your life, I always like to connect to some nearby projects. So there are a couple that are in the works for this next levy term that will be important. One of them is the Oasis Trail Corridor. You've probably read or heard about the Oasis Rail Corridor being a connection from about where Theodore Berry Park is, which is a City of Cincinnati park, and then connect out, and eventually through Arm Leader, you'll be able to get to Arm Leader and Lunkin Loop Trail, and eventually up further into the Little Miami Scenic Trail, which connects it to a regional trail, which is a very exciting project we have sort of coming. A couple of others are many of you know about the former Gamble Estate in Westwood that Great Parks purchased and is now planning for building a new park in the neighborhood of Westwood. So I think that's one that we're very excited about. That project is going out to bid for design for that park and construction for that new park. And then there are things that are a little more nuanced that maybe you don't know about that are not as easily visible. We have partnerships where we do a lot of programming with Cincinnati Public Schools, but we also have locations like Nature Center at the Summit in Roselawn, which is kind of in the middle of we look with our city partners and try to find where we maybe have park deserts where it's difficult to get access to a park. And in Roselawn, there's a great need for more park resources. So we have a nature center there in Roselawn that helps us connect with the community and give opportunities for folks in that neighborhood to connect with nature through programming and through hikes on the property. So it's something that we very much enjoy and is very important part of a story of who we are. So with that, I really appreciate your support and all who have supported, and really appreciate the forum. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Are they in the chat?
They would.
Okay. So that's all I have. Would you like me to hand it back to you or to Bill? Okay. Sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Hi, everyone. We good? All right. So my name is Michelle Dunn, and you've seen me here before. I'm a regular with the Community Issues Forums, in part because I'm proud to be on the planning committee for what we plan for the community as far as what we cover for the year. So I'm a real proud member, and thanks to Christ Church Cathedral, of course, for hosting this opportunity. Today's program, we're really covering two issues on your ballot. If you are a city or a CPS voter, you're going to go in. People are voting right now. You can vote early at your Board of Elections. You can, there's not a whole lot on the ballot, but there are two issues that you will see. We just heard about the parks. They are both renewals, meaning they won't raise your taxes. So thanks to the great parks. I know that all of us can close our eyes and think of our favorite park really easily. And I know I have my favorite for sure. I just wanted to, the main bulk of the presentation will be from board member Eve Bolton, but just a few words from myself on this levy for Cincinnati Public Schools. As we think about the value of our public dollars in our public schools, I can testify, as you did about your squishy sneakers as a child skipping stones. I think about public education and what it's done for my family to have the opportunity to have free, quality public preschool for my son who has cerebral palsy. My son, Michael, he's 29 now. But, Michael uses a wheelchair. He's nonverbal, and he came up through quality preschool and K through 12 in Cincinnati Public Schools. And it is because of the quality and the wraparound and the care and the professionalism and the incredible services that our local public school system provided my son that today he is a very thriving, happy artist who owns a small business on Main Street in Cincinnati. And we credit it directly to his young days coming up through a very supportive local public school system. So I have to say that when we go cast our vote to vote yes on 28, what we are saying is that we want to continue to support our local public schools. Board member Eve Bolton will go more into this, but we have faced an unprecedented number of devastating cuts to public education budgets, particularly in Cincinnati Public. This particular levy will continue to support our basic operations, and honestly, if it fails, we will have to cut operations. And what that means is direct services to the children of Cincinnati Public Schools. And it's just something that will be devastating, honestly. At a time when the city in this ballot cycle is debating pretty hotly the issues of crime and youth and all of that, I think this is an important piece of that conversation, that if you care about our youth in our city and you care about having a safe place for youth to be and to thrive, there's no more of a better argument than deepening our investment in our local Cincinnati Public Schools. So that's my pitch for Cincinnati Public Schools. Vote yes on issue 28. It's just a renewal. And with that, let's bring up board member Eve Bolton, who has the longest tenure on our board, and she's an incredible board member, and we love what you do and we love your service. And thank you for being here to talk to the community about issue 28. Okay.
Good job, Michelle. Great job. I'll try not to mess it up, because you did a pretty good job of selling it, and I appreciate it. And so do the kids at CPS. My name is Eve Bolton, and it's my 18th year on the Cincinnati School Board. It's what I've been doing in my retirement from teaching for 36 years. And it's been a great way to spend that time. I am a proud CPS graduate. Sailor Park, College Hill, Schwab Junior High, and of course, Aiken Senior High School. On the board in the last few years, as many of you know, we have gone through great turmoil, largely due to continuing to have the state unconstitutionally fund all public schools in Cincinnati and the state of Ohio itself. We've also gone through some leadership changes, as some of you know. But as some of you may recall from earlier in this week, we have found our superintendent, who has now received an absolutely stellar evaluation from a board that has great variety. Let me just call it that, variety and diversity on it. And a superintendent that has been willing to make the courageous changes that some of us have been talking about for a decade. We knew we had to reorganize ourselves. We kind of knew how to do that, but it took a chief executive to actually have the will and the board supporting her to make those changes. But one of the things we don't want to change in Cincinnati Public is our great public-private partnership that was started in 2016. Matter of fact, I think I was here when we first did that. I know I was here for the first renewal 5 years later. And that is this public partnership we have with private vendors in the city of Cincinnati, the school district of Cincinnati. And we have created what they called at that time, and we continue to call, the preschool promise. Largely because the state, with the exception of some dollars for transportation for special needs preschoolers, the state of Ohio does not provide for preschool. Matter of fact, the state of Ohio didn't used to provide for day-long kindergarten in any way, shape, or form. And in Cincinnati Public years ago, they led the way on kindergarten, day-long, and led the way on preschool. The preschool promise united our interest in the district to have full preschool virtually at every one of our elementary schools and wherever else we could find facilities to house them. And we're now at 130 preschool classes just with CPS. Since 2016, I should say, is a proper way to refer to it, we have had 12,000 little 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds go through the system. 12,000. On any given year, we have more than 2,000 kids just at CPS alone. And then there are these many private providers who also are trying to do what we all want to do, and that is reach the highest possible quality mark. A couple of years ago, as you'll recall, it was a star system, 5-star. At that time, every one of the 120 some CPS preschools were all 5-star. And over the time of the preschool promise, those years, we have expanded significantly, not only the number of private seats that are helped subsidized with public funds, but also have increased the quality of the seats that exist for our kids, because it was about expansion and it was about quality. And now this community leads the state of Ohio in preschool, and we are the model for the rest of the district. Matter of fact, I've had 2 calls today from 2 different board members in different districts talking about what they're doing and how they're proceeding regarding preschool and how we're doing down here. And that's it. We like to say in CPS, we lead, we do not follow. And in this area of preschool, we have led. And I'll tell you, over those years, give you an example, in the most recent state report card for Cincinnati Public, we were, of the 8 major urban districts, we led in early literacy, we led in academic achievement, and we met state standards in readiness for both military, college, and career. Now, I like to think that some of that is those 12,000 kids that have matriculated through since the beginning of preschool, and that's part of it. But the reality for us is that the state continues to badly fund public education, overfund private education, and indeed more than $1 billion is being taken out of the line item for public schools to now go toward universal vouchers. Vouchers, you'll recall, when they first started was about whether or not your kid could have a choice. That if you were going to a school that was underperforming and you had need, you could get a voucher. Universal vouchers with this state legislature, that's not that holy idea. Indeed, the idea is we want to pay for people sending their kids to parochial and private schools. And the reality is that dollar, those $1 billion, are $1 billion that are not going to go to the 75% of the kids that are in public schools in this state. So there's that. There's also, as we've now been told, and you all probably are aware of much of it, the federal government under this particular administration has decided that they are not going to fund with any federal dollars any of our immigrant or refugee children. They're not going to fund it. Any of our ESL kids, our growing population. They have now closed the office for special ed needs kids in the federal education department. So they don't care about those kids either. And the other thing is that they really are taking as much money as they can, or they have, for professional development. So there's 3 areas where there will be less money coming from the federal folks, and continuing to be less money and less money from the state government as well. So unfortunately, as is the problem with public financing for our schools in this state, as we do it unconstitutionally, we depend more and more and more on our local folks. 20 years ago, not quite 20 years ago, the local folks in Cincinnati agreed to the facilities master plan, a $1.7 billion master plan that rebuilt the entire district. 78% of those dollars were local dollars. So we've been asking an awful lot of our taxpayers, and they have been rewarding us and helping our kids and holding us accountable, which is what we want. But this particular renewal is specific for preschool promise and additional operating costs that we have besides preschool. The reality is this money is not going to meet all the needs that we have for preschool. It's really only get us there now about 75% of what preschool actually costs, but we knew and felt strongly that we didn't want to ask more at this time of the folks, either the preschool promise folks, that they agreed with us, and the CPS folks agreed that we would ask specifically what we had before, 48 million, 15 million of which, and that's annually, 15 million of which is divided equally between the public providers of preschool, CPS, those are the 130 classes of 20 kids each, and the private providers as well throughout the district area. That money that we spend on preschool is, according to our way of doing it, is last dollar in. So we only are supplementing as we need to and build toward after everything else has been devoted to preschool. And then out of the other monies, besides the 15 million, the other millions of dollars of the 48 million goes to operations for Cincinnati Public. And that can be paying for teachers, that's paying for curriculum, it's paying for heating the facilities, it's all operational money. As Michelle pointed out, we cannot even envision right now what not having this renewal would mean. It will not raise taxes. It keeps it at where it is. And we continue to fight the good fight for the kids and fight the good fight for our taxpayers. And we want to be held accountable, but we feel strongly that with that kind of 12,000 or so kids going through, being number one in the state of Ohio and in the top 20 in this country in preschool, we think we've been delivering on the original promise. And we're asking people that won't raise taxes, but to keep the promise to these kids and the future kids, and continue to reward those private providers that continue to excel and get better and provide services, and also to keep our 130 preschool classes district-wide happening. And so we ask humbly for the support for the renewal, and we will work very hard to be worthy of what you decide us to do. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to take any questions, talk about the district. I could be here for hours, but I know we're not allowed to. But if there's any questions about preschool or anything else about CPS, please feel free to request. Do I have something up on the screen? Oh, you were asking way too much of me at that point in time. Okay. Oh, they have to unmute.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions from you online? I guess not.
Super. Vote yes, and vote yes for the parks too.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go CPS.
I see Mike Curtin had an article in the newspaper about suits being brought against about the vouchers, and they're bringing suits against the vouchers. Yeah, I know you mentioned the number of $1 billion that they have put in the budget for the vouchers. Do you think that'll do? Where would we go with that?
They decided really about 3 years ago to begin to fund vouchers and then create actual universal vouchers. So that's an expansion of the initial voucher program. Cincinnati Public Schools is part of the lawsuit against the vouchers, and we are spending money toward that lawsuit. Much as we spent money just recently in the last 6 months, we also sued the federal government because they were taking money away that they had promised for us, and they took it away 48 hours before it was to be delivered and probably spent. So we sued them with 4 districts in Alaska, and we won that suit against the Trump administration and the money we've got. But the voucher thing is a long-term effort by any number of school districts. Out of the 607 school districts in the state of Ohio, there's about 350 of us that have joined the lawsuit against universal vouchers. It is the same line item, and it's money that we won't get. And very frankly, as we're beginning to find out, we're having some success legally. Indeed, in the first effort, we won in Franklin County Court. It's now going to the State Appeals Court. It'll ultimately go to the Ohio Supreme Court. And we think it may even go to the U.S. Supreme Court because previously the U.S. Supreme Court has made some rulings about voucher programs. And this one is very different than what even the Supreme Court ruled on. But we, as CPS, are suing, and we are also on the steering committee for the lawsuit representing all the 350 or so school districts. So we feel strongly that we have a good case. And the case we have is that our Ohio Constitution says that dollars are to be spent on public schools. These voucher dollars are being spent on private and religious schools. Unacceptable. The other piece of it is that we have now noticed particularly it is beginning to, how shall I say, segregate our student populations. Because what's happening with the voucher system is that those people that are middle class and upper class and Caucasian, for the most part, are the ones that are using the vouchers, thus making more predominant kids of color or kids of less financial means that are staying in public. It's what the South basically did when they were forced to integrate. They created a complete system of private schools. It's what happened in the New Orleans experience after the terrible, terrible storm. They just eliminated